take all the screws out that are in the drill. Take that off. Take this part off. As you can see, it's pretty rusty in there. Here's the gearbox here. Move this thing out of the way. You want to look here at the brushes. See how worn they are? You can see how far down that is in there, the brush. Looks like they're roughly halfway worn. There's still some life in this drill. Before you have to change brushes, we need to wiggle out the part where the brushes are. You can check this bearing here. It still works pretty good. It spins pretty good. Take this out and inspect the brushes further, and then we're also going to clean the rotor because it's got some corrosion on it because it's copper, and this drill is about 14 years old. Look at all that tarnish. To get this out, we can get a better look at the brushes too, at their condition. Brush has still got plenty of use left. Mess with this to get the rest of the motor out of here. For this being a Makita, I'm actually disappointed in how cheaply it's made with the plastic crap inside. It's ridiculous. There we go. Camera down. All that time and it popped right out. Oh boy, and there's some springs in there. I'm gonna have to pop the switch back in. Cool, look at that. Try to separate these parts. Very carefully open up the gearbox. You want to open it up to make sure that the gears have grease. Do it very carefully. You don't want to mix up the gears. That sucker's bone dry, pretty much, so that's no good. This thing's been running dry with no grease in there. It's all the other little gears in there. Be very careful because see that? These gears can pop out. Just set it down. right there, I can see some remnants of the factory grease in there. I have no idea what grease you should put in here, so I'm just going to put some grease that I have. I don't think it really matters, it's just to give the gears a little lubrication. Take the grease and put it inside. Can pop this out, the magnet. There's gears in there, they gotta go back on the wheel. See that? Those little points. There's actually still factory grease in there. They say you're not supposed to mix grease, so, or they say you're not supposed to mix two different greases together, so try to clean out as much of it as you can. Put that there. Right. Get this gear out of here. And that actually connects to the motor, and the motor rotates in there, turns all the other gears. No idea how this is all supposed to work, but there's so many gears in there, it reduces the speed to give it more torque. You want to get as far in this gearbox as you can. Put some grease here. What I do like so far is that everything inside of the gearbox, all the gears seem to be made out of steel, which is good. I don't want to see any plastic crap in here. The casing, though, they should have made out of aluminum, because the casing breaks, it's going to screw up the drill. I wouldn't put a lot of grease in here. Not too much, just a little bit. Got to take this piece now, this gear, put these little gears back on. Actually, the little shafts in here where the gears go, you can put some grease too. Make them spin easier so these parts will last longer. If the brushes were worn out, I would say go online and see if you can find replacements that are not too expensive. Otherwise, just replace the drill because they're cheap enough. Because it's a pain to find these batteries, especially when they stop making them. Take it like that, put it back inside here. You have to get it around that gear. So actually, I would turn this part upside down and then fish this thing inside. Like this. You have to remove this piece. You got this piece in place. That goes on first. Then get this thing here. Turn it over like that. Get it on there. Good. Because there's a gear in there. It's the switching gear. It switches it between high speed and low speed. High speed is fast drilling, and then low speed is high torque. Then that pops on like that. Wait a minute, no, other way. This goes on this way. See the little tabs right there? You have to line them up. Then this gear moves and it makes contact with these gears over here. There's more gears further inside here too. You want to get some grease in there. This part's done, put it down, get this part now. This part you can carefully remove. Try not to pop any of the gears off so you don't screw anything up. I'm not sure if the gearing goes any further in there, but it's pretty hard to get in there without breaking it. So just put some grease in here and then we'll put it all back together. Be careful because the grease is thick. It will make the gears pop out if you're not careful. Later on, what we'll do is we'll actually run the drill at a low speed, which will turn and set up all this grease all over the gearing. So you don't have to try to get it perfect on all the gears. This maintenance is only necessary if you've had the drill as long as I have, for like 15 years, and you've used it, then you're going to want to check the grease. Probably should have checked this years ago. Take the front and then we're going to put these gears back in very carefully. There's a gear under here that lines up with the other four. Just wiggle it in until you get it in there. Careful you don't pop off the little gears. See, one just came off. Put it back on exactly the same way as the other ones are. See, it has this little circle thing around it. The other side, it looks different. The other side looks different. That side has to go down. I actually should take these off and put a little lube on the right here on the shafts. Put some put some grease on the shafts. Just do that one by one. Not a lot, just a tiny little bit. Because that's an area that gets overlooked when you lubricate stuff. Make the whole drill run a little smoother. It might give you a little better battery life too. This could also be why the battery life of my drill wasn't that great. It could be because it wasn't lubricated, so the motor had to work harder to turn everything. Make sure you put the gears back on the right way. When you take them off, put them down on the ground the same way that they go in. And just spin them a little bit to spread out that grease. See? Then take a little grease and put it on each of the gears. This will spread itself around when you use the drill, like I said before, so it doesn't have to be all over the place. So you want to be careful for that. So you got to be careful for that. Make sure it goes back on the same way, not that way. See, it looks different this way. Carefully rejoin these two pieces. I had to actually turn this whole thing to get the screw holes to be flush. Well, these two pieces of plastic are flush. Oh, another thing, see that little tab right there? Watch, when you turn the drill, or when you turn this thing, see how it pops in? That's where it needs to go. Make sure you didn't mix up your screws. The shorter screws hold the gearbox together. Tighten them up. You can verify the gear selector is working. I took out the LED light. This thing hasn't worked in years. I see a lot of corrosion there, so I'm going to try to clean this thing up and see if I can get it to work since I got the drill apart. Try this at your own risk. I already verified that the light bulb is bad. The little circuit board is too small to try to get the old light bulb off, so I have a LED light here. If you do this when it's open, be very careful. Try this at your own risk. Put the battery in the drill. You want to make sure that nothing causes those two brushes to touch each other. You have to figure out which way you need to wire up the new LED light. LED lights only work one way. They only work when they're connected a certain way. So take the old wires right here from the connector, cut them out, splice them, remove the old light bulb and the little circuit board. Now very carefully, make sure these two don't touch. You want to verify that you got it connected right just by pulling the trigger on the drill. If it doesn't come on, then you got to try wiring it the other way. So I'm going to flip them around. Don't let them touch. Don't let them touch. Let's try it again. See that? It comes on like it's supposed to. So if for some reason the other LED went bad, and then it'll slowly turn off. Now that you verified the LED is working, the replacement, this one's a lot bigger than the old one, so it might be a little hard to get it to fit in there. There's also this little plastic thing that you gotta put back. Where the heck did it go? And when you're not testing the drill, take the battery out. As you put the switch in, you have to put in the forward and reverse switch too. Now that that's in, you can very carefully glue around the light bulb to seal it up so that it won't short out, but you want to make sure that you only glue in that area. You don't want to put glue where there's anything that might move. And only glue in that half area. Once the wires are covered, don't go any higher. So right here to this plastic is as high as you want to go with the glue. You're going to have to go a little higher on this to cover up that solder. But that's it. That's how you can fix the light in your drill. Each of these bearings here, there's one on the other side. You want to get some oil and put it in the cap like this and find some way to hold it up. And you want to soak each of these bearings in the oil. Because after 13, 14 years, they're going to need some lubrication. And they're so small, you can't take them apart to lubricate them. So this is the best way to do it. Let them soak for a few hours in the oil so the oil gets inside of the bearings. And also I went over this with some 2000 sandpaper just to get the tarnish off of this copper so you get better connection. The drill will work a little better. Did the same thing with that front bearing. Now you just get a rag or some tissue paper and wipe off the excess oil. Get rid of the oil, put it away. Wipe up the mess. this thing here, we have this metal plate that has to go in here first. And this thing here, you have to kind of play with it. I don't know if you can see that there, but you see there's a little slit. And when you put this thing in, you have to twist it and it locks it in place. To find the right spot. That's not the right spot. Somewhere around here, because actually it would be where the side of this would be, because these plastic things keep it so that the whole thing doesn't turn. It's kind of stupid just using plastic against all that torque. So you got to play with this for a little bit until you get that thing back in right. There we go. Actually, I didn't realize, but see these little things here? It lines up with that, because when it's in the drill, like I said, it's so that it keeps it from turning, this whole thing from turning. That's back on. Next thing you want to do is put the rotor, carefully put the rotor back inside the magnet. Now, the side right here, where these iron plates, the side here where these steel plates stick out a little bit further than the magnet, that is going to be facing like this. So the gear on the end of the rotor is going to be right there, where the steel plates come out a little bit past the magnet. So put it in that way, carefully. Okay. Next, you want to carefully put this in here and line it up with the gear until it lines up with the gears. You can turn this end a little bit, the copper. You know it's in when the front spins as well. The front spins slowly when you turn this. It's back in where it needs to be. Wipe off the copper again a little bit where the brushes touch. Put that back inside the drill now. It goes here. You have to turn this to the side so these things here will go in and lock in and hold this thing from spinning around. Like that. This thing goes here. No idea what that's for, but it kind of hangs out there. And then we got still a little water on the here. Get that off. Now we got to get the brushes back on the motor. Actually, it'll be easier. Take this out again. First, put the brushes back on. There's a slit that they go into. Brushes go there. Carefully reinsert this. Make sure these things are pointing down because they have to go in here. Push the brushes in to get it in there. Now it's back in. And then you take where the notch is and you make sure it goes down in there and lines up. Move it around until you get in there. You can use this right here. See where the slit is? It lines up with that right there on the housing. You can use that too. Push it in. This thing goes back here. See how much nicer that looks? Nice and clean. Make sure these wires are back in for the little light bulb. I just use I got all these little LED lights in here I bought from, I think, from China. I got a bunch of them for like $5. I don't know how well the thing's going to work. I don't know how bright it's going to be, but we'll find out. I'm just actually glad that I fixed that light because that thing's been broken for years. Sometimes when it's dark, it's nice to have it when you're trying to find a screw and you don't have a flashlight. We need to put back the torque setting switch. I pushed that spring back in that popped out. Gotta kind of work this in here. You might have to take this out again to get it in there. Fortunately, pop this out a little bit. So you have to kind of push it up a little bit to get against that spring, and now you can move this back and forth to change the gears and the gearbox. Push it back down, make sure it's where it needs to be. Everything's back together pretty much. Now you just have to get 2 covers. This drill is pretty dirty. I cleaned up this plastic really nice. It almost looks new. So you work this cover back on. Make sure it gets around those wires here where the light bulb is if you replaced your light. LED lights last forever. I don't know why it burnt out, but and then that's kind of dirty. You can clean that if you want, and then you're gonna put this cover back on. It goes over the brushes, and what's cool about this drill is just take out 2 screws and you can see the condition of the brushes, whether or not you need to replace them. Put this cover back on, put the screws on, and that's it. You did the maintenance on your drill. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell, and if you have any recommendations for future videos, leave a comment.